Alright, got another crafting video here today. This time it's going to be covering fossil crafting basics, as well as a short introduction on using poedb and craftofexile. They're two websites that you can use to kind of ensure you're not wasting your own time or currency too much when doing pretty much any manner of crafting, but especially fossil related crafting, since it can get a little bit more complicated due to the combining of different fossils. So fossils aren't quite as potent in crafting as they used to be back when there was like fossil specific mods and things of that nature, and before the introduction of like harvest as a kind of competitor. But they are still useful. There are certain situations where they're really helpful, and they do have a major advantage over harvest crafting for re-rolling your items. At least in Trade League they do, and that is that you can kind of craft in mass amounts. You can buy, 10 or sometimes even hundreds of fossils at once to just do a lot of crafting really quickly, whereas with harvest you would generally have to farm all of that yourself. So I've got a few examples. The biggest thing that harvest crafting generally lacks that fossils help with is when you want multiple, like you really want multiple specific mods on your item to make it work well. And harvest can do that with like say reforge with defense modifiers, plus defense modifiers are more likely, but those are more rare of a roll to find. Whereas that's kind of what a fossil does by default. It just makes it more likely to hit defense modifiers. And that's a prime one that you would see this with. So like an ES base where you want sometimes all three of the ES prefixes, and the more the better, because the more you get, the more ES you have. Fossils can be really helpful there. So the I've got a couple pulled up here on poedb, which if you want to use this to look at items and stuff, what you want to do is you'll go to the main website, modifiers, and then there's a bunch of drop downs here. And I like using this website for looking at the modifiers that an item can roll. Like if I went to an int shields int, and I wanted to see, like I want to look at influence modifiers. You can do this on Craft of Exile as well, but I just prefer the poedb layout for this. Craft of Exile has another tool that's really helpful though. But we don't even really need to look at this for the first couple of things. Like if you just wanted to use it to craft, what's really popular right now is an armor shield for spectral shield throw. It's kind of the same idea as an ES item. You just want all the armor rolls, ES body armor, and you just want the ES rolls. One thing you can do with poedb is right above the mods, you see all of these buttons. I could hit something like roll defenses. This is the harvest one, and it'll show all the defense mods it can roll. But this is just guaranteeing one of them, and then everything else is essentially random. Whereas a dense fossil, this is more defense modifiers and no life modifiers, so it's getting rid of, you can see all the life mods. The tags are here next to this red circle with the number, which is the mod weights. Anything that says life is going to disappear, but also anything with a defense tag, which is what energy shield is going to have a times 10, which means now this has a total weight of 110,000 instead of 11,000, which is just greatly improving your odds. And I'll show that really quickly. We'll see if we hit anything good. One thing other than the basic crafting stuff with fossils is there are some utility type ones in here as well. So perfect fossils, this item doesn't have any quality on it yet. If I wanted to try to get it to, say, above 25 quality before I started crafting it, yeah, you can use betrayal with hillock in various safe houses to add higher than 20 quality to items, but this is just a way that you can do it immediately if you wanted it. And it's actually not a bad shield right there, but not what we're looking for. So you see that one gave it 15. Perfect fossils are just random from 15 to 30 quality. So generally you can start an item off like this. This is more useful on body armors where you want the high quality to increase your chance of socketing and linking the item. It's looking like we might not get a particularly high one. Oh, there we go. We got 28 quality. So that's usually how you can start those items off. In addition, there are sanctified fossils, which just is going to increase your odds of hitting a higher tier of a specific mod. I don't really like them. I feel like most of the time, and you can usually use PoE or you can use craftofexile to back this up, that they usually end up costing too much currency compared to the boost in getting higher tier mods that they give, that they're just hardly ever worth it. Encrusted fossils are kind of whatever. If you really want to fish for heavy white sockets, you can do them. And then gilded fossils are actually pretty useful. You can use this on an item. Specifically, this is really useful on, like, if I had something like an astral plate or maybe a spell damage implicit shield. If you have something that already has an implicit, this adds an implicit. The item sells for much more to vendors, which means when you go to the vendor, you get some like random extra stuff. Doesn't show you, it used to, but people exploited it. I don't remember how exactly, but the main thing is it adds that item sells implicit. And say if this was like a astral plate, which has all res implicit, and then you add this to it, if you vol orb that item, the vol orb can get rid of this gilded fossil implicit instead of the actual implicit on the item. And then you would have a corruption thing, and you would have the like all res that the astral plate already has, which is a pretty high level thing, but it is really interesting and it is useful in certain cases. But anyway, let's throw some dense fossils at this. I'm not really expecting with only, let's do like 6. Not particularly expecting to hit anything amazing, but you should notice that there's going to be a lot of ES. You're going to see energy shield a lot of times. That one already has 3 ES prefixes actually. Looks like it might only have 2, but it's actually 3. They're just really low tier. And that was just the first go. This one, again, it has 3 energy shield prefixes. And this is just a really good way of hitting a relatively high ES item. I mean, that right there is actually a really good shield. It's not quite what I was looking for. It's got tier 2 flat ES, tier 1%, and it has +1 lightning. It has a bad suffix, but you could get rid of the suffix with harvest or some other ways. That's actually a really, really good shield. 300 plus ES with a +1 all gem, or +1 all lightning gems. We can just hold on to that one. I don't even want to reroll it. You can do similar things with like pretty much any ES base. In my experience for like ES base rolling, shields, body armors, and gloves are really good to roll with fossils. Helmets should be, but I just always have trouble. I don't know why. It's just me probably. And then boots are a bit tougher because you saw like how many times I hit triple ES prefix, and you usually want movement speed on boots. That kind of gets in the way. But yeah, really good for rolling stuff that wants lots of defense like ES gear or like big armor shields. Another thing that you can do with them is if you like just really specifically need a certain mod to get your build off the ground. Like I was playing a build earlier this league that I really needed Chaos Leech for the sustain, because I didn't really have a better way to get it other than I was going to get it on an amulet. See, I'm on the amulet page here. And Chaos Leech is a hunter mod. It's a hunter prefix. Now, I was playing SSF, and I didn't really have the resources to do it this way. But, like, let's say early on in a league, you might not necessarily find a Chaos Leech as life amulet really, really early. But you can find some fossils. So, if I was to go over here to Craft of Exile, and we're going to try and figure out how the best way to do this is. The main thing to keep note of here is that Chaos Leech as life actually has 2 tags that we can take advantage of. It has life and it has chaos, which is another advantage to fossils, because you'll see if I was to go up here and say pristine fossil, more life mods, that's going to make our hunter mod for Chaos Leech times 10. So now it's 5,000 weight instead of 500. And then if we add aberrant fossil on top of that, you get times 10 times 10. Now it's at 10,000 weight. And it stacks and it increases it even further. But so we'll go here, we'll go to jewelry, we will add our influence to hunter, click on fossils, and then if I click those two fossils, aberrant and pristine, then I scroll down to the hunter mods, I click the mod I want, and if I go back up, you'll see it shows right here that it'll take an average of 8 attempts to hit chaos damage leached as life. And the chaos orb estimate's usually decently accurate. It's not always perfectly accurate, but it says 26C, so like relatively early on, pretty good way to do it. But what you can actually do to kind of sanity check yourself is go up here, and this is a really useful tool for fossils specifically on Craft of Exile. This compute best selection. You can pick what size resonator you want to use. The main thing is generally I don't look at 4-socket resonator crafts because they're annoying to get. But if I set it to 3 and I compute best, it's going to run really quickly, and it's going to give me 2 lists of results. Raw efficiency, which is the number of tries it'll take on average to hit the mods, and cost efficiency. So you'll see, according to this, if I use aberrant, pristine, sanctified, if I added a sanctified in, the number of tries is going to go down to 6. But also you can see that the aberrant pristine combo I did is actually 4th here listed for the total chaos cost, and it says aberrant on its own is actually much cheaper because you can see it only went up to 10 tries. It only went from 8 to 10, which isn't that many more. But now you're only using 1 fossil per craft instead of 2. So you can actually see that it found a cheaper way to do it than what I originally had. There is the value of keeping in mind that, like, you know, if you just want chaos leech, there you go, that's a cheaper way to do it. But let's say maybe you kind of wanted to hit a life roll, like a better than crafted life roll, 50 to 59 life. Now this says suddenly it's almost 500C with just aberrant, but if we throw the pristine back in, it's 20 tries for about 80 chaos. So it's much better to throw the pristines in, even if it's going to cost slightly more just to get the leech, to give yourself the slight chance at getting some max life if you cared about that. And then even for this, you could run the compute best again, see if this is the cheapest way to try it, which I believe it will be, yeah. And you can actually see just pristine by itself actually edged out aberrant by itself at that point. But so that's a good use of it when you like really need a specific mod, and you can usually find a relatively cheap way to not force it, but I guess brute force it, like just keep hitting it until you get it if you don't have the option to buy one super early on in a league or something. Another one that's similar is that I've used a couple times before is hitting Mind Over Matter body armor mods, which is a shaper mod. I think it might also be on a different influence, maybe not, maybe it's just shaper. But damage taken from mana before life, which is a really interesting one because it actually has the life and mana tag because it's taken from mana before life. So if you were to go back here again, we're going to reset this with the reset button on Craft of Exile. We're going to go to body armors with int, because generally you would do this on a pure ES base. Fossils, add the shaper influence, and say we want damage taken from mana before life. And since it has life and mana, I could put in pristine, which increases life, and lucent, which increases mana. And it's actually only 5 tries on average to hit Mind Over Matter. And we can see, maybe compute the best, see if that's the cheapest way to do it. It actually shows up as pristine being the cheapest because it still only costs 5 tries. It's the same average amount of tries. I'm not really sure how that works out to be the case, but I trust that this does the numbers right because it's usually very accurate. It's actually showing that the lucent fossil is kind of unneeded. And maybe if we, let's say I wanted MOM and I want a life roll. Again, we'll try to do just slightly better than crafted life. And even this should be, yeah, it's really cheap. 12 tries on average with just pristines. And I believe it's going to say the same thing, that just pristine is the cheapest way to do it. Yep. Oddly enough, you could add metallic in. Adding a metallic fossil in is actually better than adding a mana fossil in, probably because it thinks that metallic is cheaper than the mana fossil, which it usually is, but it's because it's blocking. You can already see a bunch of these prefixes are crossed out because the pristine fossil is blocking any defense mod, so it's blocking all the ES mods. So there's actually not that many prefixes outside of the shaper ones that you can hit. And the metallic fossil boosts lightning, which we don't really care about. There's like one kind of rare lightning prefix, but it blocks. It actually blocks that same one out. You'll see if you hit this, because it blocks physical mods. So this blocked the Thorns mod and both of the Shaper physical taken as elementals. And it ends up only being 10 tries on average to hit life and MOM. But again, that's 10 tries versus 12, but you're doubling the amount of fossils you need. So pristine's probably the way to go there. Yeah, that's another good one where you can see this is boosting the mod you want, and it's blocking a ton of the mods that you generally don't care about, which is like a really nice just both ways combo. And I believe I had one more interesting note would be cluster jewels. A lot of cluster jewels, like the default mods that aren't the notables, don't really have much of the tags that you care about. Whereas, like, let's say you were rolling a fire damage cluster jewel, you'll notice a lot of the notables, almost all of them, have either the fire and elemental tags, or like just the elemental tags, which are both things that you can boost with fossils. Now, a lot of the time in Trade League recently, from what I've seen, it's pretty hard to find like sets of 3 notable large jewels that you can fossil craft for less than it costs on average to just buy one. Sometimes there's ones, if they're like really in demand, that you can get away with it. This is actually one of the situations where like a fossil crafting would be more useful for SSF, like just the not super crazy amount, but like decent amount of fossils that you might just find naturally playing through other mechanics, even if you're not delving. When you really need to hit your cluster jewel for your build. Fossils, especially on the large cluster jewels, can help you get there a lot of the time. Like you can see, just pulled up this damage with two-handers, and like almost every single notable, actually it looks like literally every single notable has the attack tag, which if you wanted to roll with fossils, there's the serrated fossil, which gives 10 times the mod weight to every single one of these. But then if you scroll down, these are all the non-notable type stuff. Not a single one of these has attack mod tag. So you're literally times 10ing all of your notables without affecting any of the stuff you don't care about. Which is, it's just another interesting thing to keep in mind whenever you're making cluster jewels. That is another option on how to craft them. And then there's one more method, or I guess method, for using fossils, where instead of using them to boost the mods you want, you can use them to strictly block out the mods you don't want. Which, you can actually go back to this body armor example when I was looking at a Shaper body armor, but it's not really used anymore. But if you were to look at, I believe it's the Crusader prefix one, you can use a combination of dense plus pristine plus maybe not. I could be mistaken on this one. We'll skip it. I thought there was a way to, there might be a 4-socket resonator way to guarantee or almost guarantee hitting explode, but it's not as useful anymore because they changed this into multiple tiers and they nerfed the mod. I could be wrong. I just thought of that one on the fly. It wasn't really in my list of planned things. Moving on. One that does work and is really useful and isn't even a influenced item is making +3 bows for things like Toxic Rain. And this one's pretty widespread by now. I think either in Delve League or maybe the league after, there was like a group of players in softcore where there was like this almost drama because they realized they could do this before a ton of other people realized that they could do it and made insane amounts of currency off of it. But if you take a bow, a non-influenced bow, and you pick these 3 specific fossils, I believe it's corroded, which blocks everything elemental. You use prismatic, which blocks everything. Is it prismatic? Jagged? You use jagged and you use... No, it's not prismatic. It is metallic. That's the one. Corroded, jagged, metallic. You will notice there's literally only 2 prefixes left. There's +1 socketed gems, and there's +2 bow gems. And so the way that item rolling works in PoE, at least I don't know if this has been completely confirmed, but through testing and player knowledge, is it rolls the number of mods that the item is going to have before it rolls the mods. So, and it's like 1 in whatever to roll 4 mods on a rare, 1 in whatever to roll 5, and then to roll 6. But in this case with this item, if the item rolls 5 mods, 3 of them are going to be suffixes, and then it has to pick 2 prefixes because it can't pick another suffix. So you're going to hit +1 and you're going to hit plus bow, which is either, it's a coin flip on hitting +1 or +2. So if you take this combo over to craftofexile and you want to see the exact chances here, ruined weapons, bow, fossils, corroded, metallic, jagged. And we want to hit a +3. So we want specifically +2, which you can see it's saying a 1 in 3 to hit that. And then we want to hit +1 socketed gems. It's 1 in 4 tries. 43 chaos. So I don't know how much +3 bows cost. They're probably relatively cheap. But you can see why. It only costs 43 chaos here to make a +3 bow. And I actually have a bow. And I'm going to try 4 times and see if I can hit it. Why not? But you can see it's not that we're using these fossils to increase the chances of hitting the plus gems mods directly. We're making it so that we almost have to hit them by removing everything else from the mod pool. And it works more with prefixes usually. A lot of times suffixes, there's like certain things that just aren't mod tagged or aren't mod tagged in a way that you can really affect them through fossils, like stats, attributes, and like rarity and stuff like that. But let's see, what should I add in here? Jagged, metallic. We need some corroded. 1, 2, 3, 4. Need here. I have this. Not a rare. Fine. Need to make it a rare. Now it's a rare. First try +1. It's a socketed bow, so that's probably only a 4 mod. There's a 5 mod. You can see it got +1, +1. There's another +1, +1. Can we get the +1, +2? We cannot. Oh. Try it again. I can try it again. Gotta get it on footage. Gotta get it on camera, or else it's not real. +2 bow. +1. +1. Hey, this bow's cursed. Who cares? You get the idea. Fossils are good. They're useful. They're not as strong as they used to be, but they still have their uses. I hope this video was helpful. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next one. Later.